Most players think visualization is some kind of natural talent, like either you're born being able to see 10 moves ahead or you're not. But that's completely wrong. Visualization is a skill, and right now, if you can see two, maybe three moves ahead before the position completely falls apart in your head, that's not a talent problem, that's a training problem. Nobody told you how to actually build the skill, and in this video, I'm going to fix that. So, first of all, what is visualization? It is not memorizing moves, it is holding a position in your head clearly even after several moves have been made. Like you're looking at a different position, but in your head, you can already see the position clearly 3, 4, 5 moves ahead. There's a difference between looking at the board and seeing the board. If you're just looking at the board, you'll see only the pieces and where they can go. But if you actually see the board, you can see far into the future and visualize how things will be even after they have been done. It's like trying to describe a room you've only glanced at. Let's say I take you to some random apartment, open the door, close it. You only got a glance of the room. Now, can you recall what all was there in it? That is basically visualization skills. See, the reason that players blunder mid calculation is not always because they don't see the tactic, it's because they don't see the board in their head. You're not miscalculating, you're miscounting. You're losing the board before you finish the thought. So, how do you actually train this? There are three methods that genuinely work, and most players have surprisingly never tried any of them. The first method is through endgame studies. See, endgame studies are basically composed positions. That means some composer actually set pieces on a board and called it a puzzle. So that is an endgame study. The reason why these are so good is because there are fewer pieces, so the brain is not overwhelmed. You don't need to remember every single piece on the board because there are quite a few pieces, so it's less stress on your brain, and they always have forced sequences. See, in endgame studies, the whole point of it is that there's usually only one correct answer. So, if you do calculate an endgame study, you will immediately know whether you're right or you're wrong because either you get the result or you don't. Some endgame studies are play to win, some are play to draw. So until you get the desired result, you can safely say that your calculation is not complete. So to start with, I would recommend doing king pawn endgame studies and rook endgame studies. They're very concrete, very trainable, and they will actually sharpen your visualization skills a lot. And a common beginner mistake is to doing endgame studies passively, like setting up the position, then reading the solution, playing it out on the board. That doesn't work. It only works when you actually stare at the board, try to see a few moves ahead, and actually try to find the answer. Here's a benchmark. If you can't hold a king and pawn endgame in your head, you have no business trying to calculate a middle game combination. So, I'm going to show you a quick example of a very beautiful endgame study. It's quite advanced and it's very complicated, but I just want to show you the beauty of an endgame study so that you know that actually it will improve your calculation. So, in this position, it's an endgame study, it's white to play, and I really don't expect you to find this because even it was hard for me when I was solving it, but I just found it really beautiful, so that is why I wanted to show it to you. We play rook e8 check. Obviously, black has to take, and now we play rook b8 check. So now if the king goes here or here, then we can capture this and promote to a queen, and we are up a rook and a knight, so that should be an easy win. So the only safe move for black is to go here. Now if you promote to a queen, then things get complicated because your king itself is in quite some danger. It'll get a lot of checks and it's really messy. So the correct move, and the more beautiful move in fact, is to take and promote to a knight. Because see, if you promote to queen, then check, check, check is a draw, and there's no way to escape it. So, because if you go here, then again it's a check, check. So there's basically no way to escape the draw. So that is why we promote to and knight. Now if he takes our rook, which he should, we take his queen. Now, if you watched my video on basic checkmates, I remember telling you guys that a knight, two knights checkmate doesn't exist because it always ends up in stalemate. But in this case, black has an extra pawn. And this might sound ironic, but this is gonna be the reason he loses the game. You see, in a stalemate position, what we will do is we'll let him push his pawn so that even though his king is stalemated, he can still make moves with his pawn and then we can checkmate him. So c4, black is trying to push his pawn as much and force white to capture it. So white should not do that. If you capture, then it's a dead draw. Here is a very important move. King d6. See, if you play king c6, then after c3, knight d5, king c8, king d6, king d8, black gets the opposition and white cannot force the black king into the corner, so it's a draw. Because the moment you move this knight, the pawn will sacrifice itself to become a queen, and that's a draw. So again, I've covered opposition in a separate video, so do check it out. So that is why we need to play king d6, which is a brilliant move because it's the only move. c3, knight d5. Now the whole point is we need to use our king and knight to force his king into this corner. That's just it. And then we slowly bring the other knight to deliver the checkmate, right? That's the game plan. So watch how white does it in a very systematic, elegant way. King c8, king e7, king d8, king d7. So we're keeping the opposition, right? We're never letting him take the opposition. And once he goes king a7, king c7, king a6, king c6. Because now if he comes here, then we can just play this. And again, this square is covered, this square is covered. So we'll have to go there anyway. So let's see, he plays king a7, then knight e7. Again, we're trying to maneuver, come here, here, and just block off the squares for him. Knight c8, knight b6. Like I said, these two squares are covered, this square is covered, the king has to go here. And now we play knight c4. So again, we took away this square, so the only square is king a7. And now knight d6 again. So now he's going to try and come back. So we're going to prevent him with knight d7. So we're doing this again. Again, we play knight c5, taking away this square. And now finally, he's forced into the corner. Because if you go here, then again this, and this anyway forces you into the corner. So he decided to go there immediately. And now king c7, king a7. He gets the opposition, but only temporarily. Because now we allow him to queen. Yes, that's right. We allow him to queen because we can checkmate just in time. Knight b4, c2. Of course, the moment you let him push his pawn, he's going to push it because he wants you to capture it. But we ignore the pawn. We play check, king a8. And now notice that when we move this knight and he promotes, this knight will prevent our king from getting checked. So that is how we can play knight a4, c1, knight b6, checkmate. So you see, this was a 23 move combination that you had to see from here. And I'm not saying you had to, but I'm just saying that doing endgame studies is really beneficial. As you can see, they're also quite beautiful. So it makes chess more enjoyable. The second method is multi-move tactics the right way. See, most players already do tactical puzzles, but the way they do them actually kills visualization. See, the problem is most players, when they start solving tactics, they scan the position, they spot the pattern, play the first move, and then they verify whether it's correct, not. They actually play the move. They don't think ahead. So this is pattern recognition training and not visualization training. The correct method is cover the solution or don't take hints if you're doing on chess.com, and try to calculate the entire sequence in your head till the end before touching any piece, and then verify. See, The first one builds intuition. When you intuitively find the correct move to play without calculation, that is also useful. But the skill that we're training here is visualization. So, to build calculation depth, you need to try to imagine the solution end to end without touching the pieces from the starting position of the puzzle itself. Let me show you a game example wherein you need to calculate till the end in order to know whether you're going to survive or not. So in this position, white plays bishop d3, and as you can see, black is in a horrible position. White already has a piece advantage, and you can see black's king is not exactly what you would call safe. See, if you move the rook, then white will immediately give check, the king moves, and it's gonna be nasty. So you also need to notice that this knight is also under attack. So it's basically quite a very sad position. But what if I tell you there's a way to escape alive? I'm not saying you can win. I'm not saying that you will be in a draw's position. I'm just saying you'll avoid losing immediately. So try to find the best move in this position. And remember, look at look at it till the end. Did you get it? Well, the answer is queen g2. The point is you're counter-attacking his rook and it's going to be a check. So he kind of has to do something about it. So he plays queen e6 check, which is the best move for him. And you don't play king h8, because if you play king h8, then things can get problematic after a move like bishop f5 maybe. Sorry. Sorry. Here, white plays bishop d3, and his idea is to attack this h7 pawn indirectly. As you can see, black is already in a dire position. He's already down a piece because he has only 2 minor pieces while white has 3. And his knight is under attack, his rook is under attack, his king is quite unsafe. So basically what black needs to do is save the position here. Don't lose immediately. So pause the video and try to find the answer yourself. If you did get it, it's queen b2 when you're trying to take this rook with a check to the king. So he has to do something about it. He can play queen 6 check, and now rook 8 f7 is the best move, because if you play king h8, then rook h7 is devastating. When take and your knight hangs the next move, your king is completely open. He's going to develop his pieces next. No, it's not good. So that is why he played rook 8 f7, and now he takes bishop f5 again, threatening that. So you have to take the rook, but still you see rook for rook, bishop for bishop, knight for knight. He's still up a piece. But after knight c4, which is the only safe square for the knight because it's under attack, and if you defend, then it's not the best idea because coming here is better to attack his position. So knight c4, and here you're a piece down, I agree, but look at these pieces. They're not exactly in play, and his king is also kind of exposed, so you may have something going with an attack like this, maybe takes. So basically you survived. There's also an idea of this when it's an attack here and here, but for now it's defended. But in the future you can always think of stuff like this. So you had to see all of that from the starting position. You had to see that you will have knight c4 at the end and that his king will be weak. So basically you should be able to see this position from here. That's the skill. And a really cool way I like to do this, especially when I was a beginner myself, was to go to puzzles, go to puzzle themes, and scroll down to find mates. So initially you can start with, let's say, mate in 2 or mate in 3 if you're really struggling, then move on to mate in 4 and then mate in 5 or more. So what this does is, since it's a mate, you clearly know whether you got it or not, and it's forcing, so it intuitively builds it while not being too hard of a process. So training these in order will really make a lot of sense, and it's on free for leeches. It's for free on leeches, so you can always. Now the third method is blindfold chess. So You don't have to do it full on Magnus Carlsen style where you're actually blindfolded and you're being told the moves. But you can do a beginner friendly version. So the simplest version, in my opinion, is to take a score sheet or a notation sheet and try to play without the board. Just write down the moves. So let's say e4, your opponent plays e5, write down e5. Then knight f3, you play knight f3, write it down. So that way, if you ever forget, you can always go back to the top and revisualize it again because all the moves are written down. Or if even that is too difficult, it might be at first, then try to visualize only the first 5 moves of the game and then keep checking the board to refresh your memory, and try to increase this length slowly. Like maybe you do the first 5 moves in your head, then you look at the board, then you do the next 6 moves in your head, then you look at the board, and so on. So I have also done a video about chess variants that are good for your chess. You can check it out here. And it's I mentioned a variant called 123 chess, which also improves this skill of visualization. So if you want, you can check that out too for a fun alternative to training. The key thing is that your brain is like a whiteboard. Right now, someone keeps erasing it mid calculation. Blindfold training and all these other methods is helping you stop that. Now see, all these three methods work only if you apply them with the right structure. Here's how to actually build a routine around this. So I want to suggest a simple weekly routine for your training. 3 days a week for 10 to 15 minutes, do multi-move tactics like the ones I showed you on Leeches or from wherever you want to do. Make sure you have the full line in your head before making a move. Then 2 days a week, do 1 or 2 endgame studies and actually attempt the puzzle before checking the solution. And for the last day of the week, you can maybe do a blindfold exercise. Grab a friend, tell them you want to play a game with them, and do it blindfold either with the notation or with the progressive board checking. And I want to emphasize that you need to be consistent rather than do loads of training. 15 minutes done correctly every day always beats 2 hours of passive scrolling through puzzles and checking solutions of endgame studies. And one more thing, don't switch your methods too rapidly. Like don't do one endgame study and then play 5 moves blindfold chess and then don't do that. You need to let one method compound before you switch, right? So keep days, like on Monday I'll do visualization, like tactics. On Tuesday I'll do maybe endgame studies. Like that, you keep it in a formatted way. Visualization doesn't improve in days, it improves in weeks, but only if you actually do the work. So these three methods work, but only if you actually use them. Pick just one this week. Pick one this week, just one, and do it every single day for 7 days. Not an hour, just 15 minutes done correctly. You will be surprised at how fast your calculation starts to feel different. If you want to keep building this skill, the next video in this playlist goes even deeper into how to train your calculation step by step and what is the right thinking process. Subscribe if you want to watch that. I'll see you there.